All right, welcome back to the Crabby. Today we're going to do a full setup and rules breakdown here for Whistle Mountain, which is a worker placement game from one of my favorite designers, Luke Laurie. And all his games sort of follow the same sort of mechanism or flow, and you'll see that as we go through this game. All right, so this is going to be the setup and rules video. Click on the link below. I'm going to have a full playthrough video for this one. And that's it. Before we start, please like, subscribe, and comment on my YouTube channel. That'll be fantastic. All right, so first let's start with the setup. Now I already have most of the stuff already set out onto the board, but let's just recap. So first you're going to put out your game board, which is actually made up of 4 puzzle pieces, as you can see from here. All right, what you're going to do is you're going to connect them all together to form your game board. All right, and then we're going to focus in on the middle of the board over here. We're going to have 2 plastic holders, all right, with a long peg. You're going to put the pegs at the bottom, but the holders are going to sort of fill in this empty slot of the board. All right, and they're going to fit pretty nicely. And then you're going to grab all your water tiles and you're going to put them all at the bottom. All right, all with the large peg. And they're all going to hold themselves like so. All right, on the right hand side of the board over here, you're going to have all your ribbons. You're going to put 1 in every slot. And then you're going to put 4 of the returning whirlpool ones at the bottom. All right, any other ribbons that you might have, I just leave them face down over here. There might be situations where you need to draw a face down one. Example from another ribbon or something, or from a card, you'll just grab them from here. All right, other things on the board is you're going to have all your scaffolding, just separate them by type and put them on their designated areas. Up here is for the upgrades, draw a stack, and then you put out 3. These are where all the machines are going to be. So 3 small machines, 3 medium machines, 3 large machines. You can put the draw deck off the side of the board or put them in their designated areas. And then finally on the top here, you're going to have all the cards, give them a very good shuffle, and put them in the draw stack area right there. That's pretty much it for the board. On the right hand side, I'd just like to put all the resources or separate them however you like. And on the other side, I'm going to have all the victory point shits you're going to get throughout the game. All right, now let's focus in on the player pieces. So depending on the number of players, A, give them all a player board with their 3 blimps. You can put their 3 blimps on the notches over here on the left hand side. All right, you're going to give each player 1 of every resource except for the whistle. All right, and every player after the first player is going to get an extra resource. Look at the rule book. You get an extra water, an extra whistle, so on and so on. All right. And lastly, for their play area is, the rule book tells you to sort of do a reverse draft from the last player. You deal out the number of the starting abilities equal to the number of players plus 1 and going back. My suggestion, make it go a little bit faster. Just give 2 to every player, make them pick 1, and then throw the other ones into the box. All right. And lastly on the board, depending on the number of players, everyone's going to put 2 of their workers into the whirlpool area and then 1 in each of the barrack slots over here on the left hand side. And before I forget, each player is going to get 2 scaffolding of the same type. Pick whichever one you want. Strategically, you might want to pick one over another, but let's just say player 1 took these 2 and player 2 took these 2. Then in turn order, everyone's going to play 1 of those scaffolding onto the game board. And the only rule is 1 of the sides of your scaffolding has to touch the bottom part of the board over here. So for example, this is legal, but this is not legal. All right, this is not legal. This is legal. All right, so you can do it however you like. So just a random example in a 2-player game. Let's just do 1 player do that, and we'll make the other player do that, for example. All right. All right, rules breakdown time. Now, Whistle Mountain is not really a dense, rules-heavy game. All right, there's some rules, but it's fairly easy to pick up. It is a Luke Laurie game, which means that it is going to be a worker placement game, and it has the same mechanism in all its designs where you're either putting out a worker and doing something, or you're going to pull back all your workers and then do something else. All right, so you're not wasting a turn just pulling back things. You're actually going to perform an action when you pull back all your workers. I do have to say there's an awesome reference on your player board over here of everything that you're going to do. All right, so you have here, just as a summary, the collect action, which is putting out a worker. All right, so putting out a worker is basically collecting stuff. You're either going to be collecting resources from the main board, or you're going to be collecting the stuff around the board. So machines, scaffolding, upgrades, or cards. And then when you used up all your workers, even before you used up all your workers, you're going to do a forge action, which means returning all your workers and then building on the game board. And this is just a little summary that you can play 1 ribbon or 1 card a turn. All right, so how we're going to go through the rules in this game is we're going to go through all the collection steps, how that works. Then we're going to do the forge action, which is the returning, and show you how that works and how you build out here in the game board. And then we'll talk about some of the extra little end game rules and ribbons and stuff like that. All right, so for collecting, like I said before, there's a great summary here on your player board, and this is all about putting out your workers, which are blimps in this game. I'm just going to call them workers, but remember, blimps. And they come in 3 different sizes. You have a 3x1, a 1x1, and a 2x1. And on your turn, if you do the collect action, you pick one of them, and you're going to put them out onto the game board. All right, so you have a couple of options. First, you're going to pick which blimp you want to use. In this random example, I'll use my 2x1. All right, and you're either going to put your worker out on the outside of the board where there's notches. All those represent different actions you can do. All right, and get one of those tiles that are there. Or you're going to put them out onto the middle game board, and this is just collecting resources. They're pretty much doing conversions or stuff like that, depending on what buildings and machines are out there. All right, so first, let's just go over the notches on the outside because that's pretty easy, pretty self-evident. I mean, everything on the left-hand side here is just collecting machines. You don't build the machines. This is where you just collect them. All right, you put them in the storage area next to your board. All right, so the cost is written on the board. Very simple here. You got to turn in 3 steel and 2 coal, and you'll pick one of these. When you take it, you just refill from these draw deck. Over here are the medium machines. Pay 3 steel, take one of those. Very easy. Up there, there's 2 spots for the smaller machines. Oops, I did forget to refill this. All right, you're going to put your worker there, pay 2 coal or 3 coal, take one of the available small machines next to your board. All right, and when you take them, you just take it, put it next to your player board. All right, you don't actually build them. All right, out here on the right, very similar. You're going to go here, you're going to get one of the available upgrades. Now, upgrades have no designated cost because the cost is on the upgrade itself. You're going to notice up here on the top. Right, so for example, if you wanted this upgrade, it's going to cost you 3 steel. When you get an upgrade, you actually slot it in right away. You're going to slot it into one of your available 6 slots, and you can only have 6 upgrades throughout the game. All right, and like every other tile, when somebody takes one, you just refill from the draw deck. All right, over here are the scaffolding tiles. All right, they come in 3 different shapes. And by putting your worker here, all right, you can either take 1 tile for free, take whichever one you want, or pay a whistle to get 2 tiles, or pay 2 whistles to get 3 tiles. Now, if you get more than 1, you can take any combination of any size as long as you get that amount. So you can take, for example, if I pay 2 whistles, I can get 3 tiles from the same stack, 2 from one, 1 from another, or just take 1 of each, for example. All right. Up there is just getting cards. Very similar to this. You're going to get 1 card for free, or you can pay 1 of any resource, that's what the star means, to get 2 cards, or pay 2 of any resource, like water or steel, coal and water, whatever you like, and you get 3 cards. I just take them from the top of the deck. When you use cards in this game, you just put them face up on the discard pile. Okay, and the last spot, which I'm going to sort of skip because we're going to talk about it later, which is here, which is rescuing your characters from the whirlpool. This is not going to make any sense to you right now. I'm going to talk about it during the forge action when you can pay to move guys up, but there's an action spot over here to do that. All right, those are pretty much all the action spots on the outside of the board. On the inside, now we're going to talk about collecting resources. All right, so there's only one fundamental rule about putting out your blimp/workers out here in the middle of the board to collect resource, in that you cannot place on scaffolding or even partially on scaffolding, but you can place either next to scaffolding or in a machine, completely within a machine. All right, in either case, you're going to collect all the resources orthogonally adjacent to the worker that you played. And that's why we have 3, 2, and 1 spaced style workers. All right, I'm going to show you with some examples. All right, so let's say I'm the yellow player and I played my worker over here. So remember, you can place next to scaffolding or on top of a machine. So in this example, next to scaffolding. All right, and you're going to collect everything orthogonally adjacent to you, and also activate any machines that are orthogonally adjacent to you. So in this random example, I'm going to collect a gold, a steel, a water, and then I'm going to activate this machine, which gives me 5 points. All right, another random example. Let's just say I put my 2 worker out here, up here. All right, it's going to give me 1 gold, another gold, and a whistle. All right, maybe I want to go over here to collect some water. In this example, I'm just going to collect 2 water and a whistle. All right, those were examples from scaffolding or next to scaffolding. Now, if you place on a machine, it works the exact same way. So a very good placement would be maybe placing over here. All right, so this will give me 2 steel and also a gold and a whistle. And I'm also going to activate this machine. So I'm going to get 5 points. All right, it works the same way the other way. So if I was over here, I would collect 5 points. I would get a coal and I'd activate this machine to get 2 steel. And obviously, players are blocking each other. So let's say blue was here. Then I wouldn't be able to place on top of blue. I would have to go in another spot to sort of get the same exact resources. And that's pretty much what we're doing. Putting our resources out here to get getting our workers out here to get resources. All right, now, you cannot place on top of scaffolding, like I said. So this would be an illegal move. This is an illegal move. You can't do this. Illegal. You can't do this. You can't have your guy off the board. You can't touch the bottom thing. Half off the bottom. All right. And if you place on a machine, the worker has to completely fit. So for example, these small machines, you can put a 2-size worker on it, but you can't put a 3-size worker on it. He doesn't fit. But for these medium ones, you can put a 1, 2, or 3-size worker on them. Doesn't matter. And that's what you're going to do. Place out your workers, collect resources off the side of the board, and put them in your supply over here. And as I mentioned before, you are limited to the space that you have for each. All right, so if you're not collecting, this is where you're going to do the forge action, and where you take back all your workers and you put them back on the left-hand side over here. And just as a reminder on your player board, it is the middle option here. And by the way, I didn't mention it before, but obviously when you're going around in turn order, placing out your workers, you only place out one. So yellow is going to play a worker, blue plays a worker, then yellow, back and forth until you want to do a forge action, bring everything back. Now, forge action follows the same 5 steps, and we're going to go through each step in detail. All right, so always follow these 5 steps. Step 1 is the easiest step. You're going to take all your workers, no matter where they are, in the middle of the board, on the outside. You're going to take them, and you're going to slot them back onto your player board out here on the left-hand side. All right, step 2 is you're going to decide how many builds you're going to do that round, or that forge, let's just say. All right, so you can build one item that you have in your supply for free, but if you want to build 2 items, all right, so either 2 scaffolding or 2 machines, or scaffolding and a machine, all right, it's going to cost you an extra water to do an extra build. Or you can do 3 builds, so 3 hammers, and it's going to cost you 2 water. So in this random example, let's say I wanted to build all my stuff. That's 3 different items. All right, it's going to cost me 2 water. Throw this into the general supply, and then I'll be able to build these 3 things. All right, so step 2 is really deciding what you're going to forge. All right, step 3 is just building your scaffolding out onto the game board. All right, just scaffolding, not machines just yet. All right, so you're gonna, in this random example, I picked 2 scaffoldings to build. All right, you're gonna put them out. And now building scaffolding is useful in a couple of ways. First, you're gonna score points. All right, second is you're growing the area where you might be able to build machines. So if I had one of these ginormous, massive machines, right now there's nowhere to play it. But you know, if I play my tiles correctly, for example, like so, I'll now be able to build my machine. All right, we'll talk about building machines in a couple of seconds. All right, but that's why you're building scaffolding. Okay, so now let's talk about scoring points first. So when you put a scaffolding, you're going to score points equal to the amount of segments, which is one side of a square, that touches another scaffolding out onto the game board. All right, so let's look at some examples. Let's say I built it like this. All right, all I'm going to do is score 1 point because that little segment touches that segment. All right, if I did this, that's going to score me 2 points. 1 segment here, 1 segment here. If I put it like this, that's going to score me 1, 2, 3, 4 points. All right, so a segment here, segment here, segment here, segment here. You're basically looking at every square on that polyomino, and for every side that's touching another scaffolding out there, you'll score an extra point. If I built it over here in this little perfect spot for right now, I'm going to score 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points just for that placement. And that's what you're going to do. All right, let's just put my previous example. So let's say I want to build 2 scaffolding. So I build this. I'm going to score 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to build this like this, which is going to score me another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, whenever you score from scaffolding in this game, you're just going to look at the stars off the side of the board. You're going to take that many stars and put it into your personal supply. All right, step 4 is before building machines, you're actually going to look over here. And you're going to decide whether or not, this is optional, to spend gold to move a meeple worker, not one of your blimp workers, but a meeple worker from either the barracks onto the game board or from the 2 for the whirlpool onto the game board. All right, so in this example, let's say I took, oops, this guy wasn't supposed to be here. I can either take a guy out here for 1 gold and move him onto the scaffolding somewhere, all right, or pay 2 gold to take one of these guys out onto the game board. All right, in this example, let's just say I spent 1 gold. I'll take one of these guys and put out onto the game board. And these guys have to go on scaffolding. And I'll show you why in a couple of seconds. You might have some strategic areas where you might want to put them. The 5th step is actually building your machine. All right, so if you had any machines that you were building this round because of your hammers, you're going to take it and you're going to put it out onto the game board. All right, placement rules are pretty evident. All right, you need to just place the whole machine on top of scaffolding. All right, so this would be not legal. This is not legal. This is legal. This is not legal, for example. This is legal. All right, you can rotate, that's fine. But the whole thing has to fit on top of scaffolding. That's why it's harder to put out the larger machines because they take up a lot more area. But over here, I put up a nice 3x3. So if this was my personal supply, I can place it right over here. All right, after placing a machine, whatever's in the top section, you're going to gain from the various supplies. All right, so it might be just points. You just gain those points. It might be cards, resources. Some of these larger machines give you a lot better stuff. All right, and you'll just collect all that stuff and put it into your personal supply. All right, also, if you place a machine, this is where the workers come into play. All right, so if you place it on top of a meeple, what you're going to do is you're going to move that meeple onto the promoted side of the board over here. All right, so this guy was here, for example. I'm going to look at that side. I'm going to place him right over here. And that's useful in a couple of ways. One, he's safe now from floods. We'll talk about floods later. And also, you're going to see here victory points. That he's going to score victory points at the end of the game. All right, if you're the first meeple to hit that ribbon on the right-hand side, you're also going to gain that ribbon and put it into your personal supply. I'll talk about these in a couple of seconds. All right, so in this example, yellow put their guy there. They build a machine. This guy slides over. I get the ribbon, and he's there for the rest of the game. All right, let's quickly talk about flooding because it deals with building machines. Now, whenever a machine gets built above the bridge, you're going to see here in the background, there's a nice mountain and there's like a little bridge right over here. So there's an imaginary line over here. All right, so whenever a machine gets built above that line, all right, so in this case scenario, let's say I built this machine right here. It did go above the line. That means we're going to flood the game board. So whenever that happens, you're going to take one of the water tiles that are all supposed to be here, but I took it off to save some space so you can see the board. What you're going to do is you're going to flood. You're going to take one of these tiles and you're going to place it in the next available slot going up. All right, now, if there were any workers in that row, they get thrown into the whirlpool. So whether they're in the barracks or on the board. So let's just say, for example, this guy was here. Well, he's still going to fall into the whirlpool. So whether he's here or there, into the whirlpool, and then you're going to place the tile in the next available slot. All right, and you're just going to keep doing that. Let's say the next machine to be built. I mean, let's just show you with a random example. Let's say somebody built this machine over here. Again, somebody built above the bridge line. You're going to flood again. You're going to take the next tile. You're going to go to the next spot. These two guys are in that line. They're going to get thrown into the whirlpool. And we're going to place the tile here. All right, the rules of flooding is that you just keep going and throwing things into the whirlpool. And this causes machines and obviously scaffolding to get covered up. All right, so any machine that's partially covered is inoperable. All right, you cannot place workers there any longer. All right, so this would be an illegal placement in the future. Right, I could still put it over here, but when I activate this tile, it doesn't activate the machine next to it. It just collects the 1 water for being there. All right. Also, I forgot to mention this rule, but if there was a blimp worker here and you flood, well, these don't get thrown into the whirlpool. They just get returned back to that player's side of the board. Right, just going to put it back over here. And that's what happens. You're going to flood the board, throw people in the whirlpool. And that's what we're going to talk about this action, which I skipped last time. This is basically just taking one of the guys from the bottom over here and adding him to the scaffolding wherever you like. All right, the last thing you can actually do on your turn is there's bonus actions. All right, there's a little reminder over here. And that's either ribbons or cards you're collecting from various things. For example, the card deck. All right, so on your turn, there's a little reminder here. You can play at most 1 ribbon and or 1 card. It doesn't matter how many cards you have. On your turn, you can play 1 card, and it doesn't matter how many ribbons you have, you can play 1 ribbon. Now, when you play a card, it goes into the discard pile and do whatever effect it may have. There's a ton of different effects in this game. All right, but if you play a ribbon, you basically get the effect of the ribbon, and then I just like to throw this back into the game box. All right, it's not going to come into play anymore. All right, so lastly, let's talk about end game. So how does the game end get triggered? And that happens when there's nothing left in the barracks. That can either happen through flooding or everyone pays their gold to remove things from the barracks. But usually it'll happen near the end of the game. You'll either be flooded until this point over here. Let's just say these guys are over there in the promoted area somewhere. And then this guy's flooded, and then we're going to keep getting flooded and flooded and flooded. But eventually when you get to this height, oops, I forgot one. Somebody's going to start building, and this guy might enter the game board, and then there's one left. And then let's say he leaves. All right, either through flooding or the user or the player moved them out onto the game board. All right, when there's no more workers in the barracks, all right, that's going to trigger the end of the game, but every other player is going to get an extra turn. All right, so in this random example, let's say blue triggered that end game. Well, then yellow will have an extra turn, and then you're going to go straight to end game scoring. All right, end game scoring is similar to other games. All right, we're just going to look in the rule book here, and I'll just go through it. So first is the tower. Anybody that got promoted, you're going to score the points out on the right-hand side over here. All right, next, you're going to lose 5 points for each worker you still have in the whirlpool, which is horrible. All right, you want to rescue these guys. All right, -5 for each. So yellow and blue in this situation will get -20 points. All right, next, for any upgrades that you got throughout the game, you're going to notice a little star value below the name or next to the name, and then you're going to score that many points. All right, you're also going to calculate all the stars that you collected throughout the game. All right, and then you're going to look at your storage area, and you're going to get points according to other resources that you have left over. So for any machine you have left over, you'll get a point. For any ribbon, you're going to score a point. For any scaffolding or 2 scaffolding, you'll score a point. For every 2 cards, you'll score a point. And 1 point for every one of each resource. So for every set of resources, you'll score a point. Now you'll tally all that stuff up, and whoever has the most is going to win the game of Whistle Mountain. And so those are the rules. Click the link below for the playthrough. That's it. We'll see you in the next one. Later.